How's it going, everybody? This is the Nitty Gritty. My name is Chad. With me is Leonard. This is a show about wrestling. And this week, we are going to be talking about Sid Eudy, a specific part of his career. But before we get there, let's just have a short chat about some of the recent WWE events and, well, some of the recent AEW events. So AEW and New Japan had their joint Forbidden Door event, which was a little over a week ago now. And it was really good. You know, one would almost say there was too many consistently good matches on the card. I mean, it was pretty stacked from top to bottom. Now, obviously, it was marred by, injuries to a certain degree. CM Punk wasn't there, MJF wasn't there, but they still managed to put on a really good show. There was a lot of multi-man matches that either is your cup of tea or it's not. But there was a lot of really good stuff there. Specifically, Will Ospreay and Orange Cassidy, I thought, was a standout. It was good to see FTR win the New Japan tag team titles. Dax left with a shoulder injury, then came back. All signs point to they have 3 titles now, Leonard. I don't know if you knew that. They have the AAA titles, the ROH titles, the NJPW titles. And so all signs point to a rubber match with the Young Bucks for like a winner-take-all type thing.
Which the Young Bucks will win.
Well, I don't know about that, actually.
The Young Bucks record against FTR right now is 600-0.
No, it's 1-1.
It's 600-0. Everyone knows this.
It's, as far as I know, they've only faced each other twice, and they've each won one. Anyway, the match for the NJPW heavyweight title with Jay White and Okada, Adam Page and Adam Cole was also very good, as was Jon Moxley versus Tanahashi. So like I said, a lot of good matches. One would even say they needed like a breather match in there. If I'm, offering any criticism to the event, it's just like when you see so many consistently good matches like that back to back to back, it's tough sometimes for each one of them to stand out in their own way, unless there's gimmicks attached. But then, of course, the Wednesday following, they had Blood and Guts. And I had forgotten to mention that formerly Cesaro, Claudio Castagnoli, debuted at the NJPW event against Zack Sabre Jr. And so he was then in Blood and Guts. And Blood and Guts was a lot of fun as well. And so the most recent event, though, of course, was WWE's Money in the Bank. Now, I didn't get a chance to watch that live. Leonard, what is your opinion about the Saturday move that they're making? Because I personally think it's a huge error.
On one hand, I think it's just commonplace that everyone is used to watching shows on Sundays. Now, I would be curious to go back in time to see if that was always the case, if big shows were always on Sunday or if they did big shows on Fridays or Saturdays, not just pay-per-views, but even, like the big monthly shows or super shows that territories would do, things of that nature. The thing is with Peacock or, WWE under Peacock, it's available anytime you want to watch it. So to me, if you want to watch it Sunday night, then watch it Sunday night.
Right. Well, okay.
You have to avoid spoilers.
See, that's where I was going to go with that. So
if that means anything to you. Now, to me, it doesn't. I mean, you can wrestling, TV show, movie, spoil it for me. I don't care. It's about the journey, not the destination.
Well, I agree with some of what you're saying there. So I try not to let spoilers affect me. For certain things, I do think they matter. And if there's a twist in a movie, I really don't want to know that. And so if there's a twist in a wrestling show, I'd prefer not to know that. And in the case of Money in the Bank, the first thing that the Instagram account and the Twitter account posted was who won and whether or not there was a cash in. And so I knew all those things going in. And I much prefer there to be shows on Sunday simply because Saturday's a day when people go out, and I don't really see UFC has that market cornered. So why even try to go into that day? But
let me ask you this: would you prefer say a random Thursday, because who does shit on Thursday?
I mean, it wouldn't be my favorite day to watch a show, but it would be more convenient than Friday or Saturday.
And also, too, aren't they starting earlier?
They were for a while. I don't know if they still are because I haven't watched one live in a little bit. But they were starting at 7. Because
that's the other thing too. If you talk Sunday nights, I know there was a lot of times back when I was watching pay-per-views regularly. You have to get up for work or school the next day.
Right.
So you've got a 4-hour WrestleMania going to after midnight, and it's the same way with other sports like the Super Bowl. People start checking out. So even if they were on the Sunday, to me, I think the perfect time to start Eastern might be around 4 or 5.
Right. Yeah, I'd be okay with that. So as I said, I did see who won the Money in the Bank matches. Liv Morgan won the women's Money in the Bank match and then cashed in on Ronda Rousey later in the show. And I thought this immediately when I saw it because I had known who was going to win. And I'm going to echo what Bully Ray said on his Busted Open radio show, which was, basically when Liv Morgan came down to the ring for the Money in the Bank, you could tell that she was going to win. Like, you didn't know she was going to cash in, obviously, but you could tell that she was going to win because she was almost in near tears coming down to the ring. Now, obviously, I saw who would win beforehand, but I was looking at her, and you could tell. Like, you could just tell, and most people would agree with that. And that is much, and I'm happy for her. She's from New Jersey. She's worked really hard, and, hats off to her. She's the champ now. But that's a problem. And people always used to say about, what's his name from America's Most Wanted and Beer Money, not Bobby Roode.
James Storm?
James Storm, yes. People would criticize him because they would say, you'd always tell when he was going to lose because he would walk to the ring with the boo-boo face on. And so anyway, my point is you got to control your emotions. And obviously sometimes it's hard to do that, but you could tell. And Austin Theory won the men's Money in the Bank. And so he was a last second entry right before. I realize there's surprises in wrestling all the time, but the way WWE is doing it lately, to me, just feels wrong.
They're trying to hotshot angles because they don't got nothing.
Exactly. I hated the fact that he was just kind of put out there and there wasn't any reason given. And here's why I hated it. If you watch every week, I do not anymore, but if you watch every week, you're told that the Money in the Bank qualifiers are important. And what happened with this is they were basically telling you they mean nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not only because of Austin Theory, but because there's second chances, there's last chances, there's umpteenth million chances for these people to enter. And basically these matches mean nothing. And like, to me, the way that the Money in the Bank match has gone downhill cannot be denied. It just can't be. Like, I wasn't a fan of when Brock Lesnar kind of just came in for no reason. I'm a Brock Lesnar fan, but I thought that was stupid too. So I don't know. Theory winning. I'm not on the Theory bandwagon. I don't get it. He's the chicken shit heel. They already have one of those. I don't know why they need another. The whole Vince McMahon backing him thing. We've seen that ad nauseum in the past. I think he's one of, you could tell me if you agree or disagree with what little you probably have seen of him, Leonard, but he to me is nearing that channel changer quality where, yes, you don't want to like him, but I don't like him to the point where I want to change the channel.
Right. To X-Pac heat as it is. Yeah. Now, again, as we've discussed, I don't watch anything anymore week in and week out. And with that being said, I would say that I am doing a pick'em on Facebook for WWE just for fun. I only missed 2 matches, and that was me not watching anything. And the 2 matches I missed were the Money in the Bank ladder matches.
Right. Well, that makes sense.
Yes. Another thing I wanted to mention is fact, that as I've said, I'm doing a long-term fantasy booking fad, and everyone has like their own territories. And we recently did a super show. And all the secondary champions were put into a Money in the Bank ladder match for, basically the equivalent of the NWA title, what we call the UWA title. And you know who won that Money in the Bank ladder match? It was based on a random draw. Greg the Hammer Valentine.
I'd be okay with him making a run in this most recent event.
That would have been. I think that would have got a crazy pop.
Yeah, I would hope so. And so, yeah, it's worth mentioning that Bobby Lashley had defeated Austin Theory for the U.S. title earlier in the show.
Yes, and I called that. I did to get Lashley beating Theory just because.
Well, because it makes sense. Nobody's, that one made sense. But what didn't make sense was like, oh, we're just going to put him in this match. I don't know. I just, the matches themselves were okay. The match of the night was the Street Profits versus the Usos. And, even though with no suspense going in, because nobody in their right mind, I think, would have picked the Street Profits to win.
No, if I remember from the pick'em, and again, this is in with like 15, 17, 15, 20 people, I think. But last time I looked, like nobody had picked the Street Profits.
Right, exactly. But they put on a hell of a show. And that, to me, was the match of the night. It actually surprised me how good it was, given that I knew exactly how it was going to end. But anyway, those are the thoughts on the most recent events. I'm not a person that will say AEW does everything right, but to me, they're doing more right now than WWE is. So be that as it may. Leonard, what's your one sentence reason why you didn't watch Money in the Bank on Saturday?
I didn't know it was on.
That's a great reason. We're going to do that more in the future. Like if you haven't watched an event, I'm going to ask for your one sentence reason, and you could even make it up. I don't even care.
Yeah. What was that? Was I doing something on Saturday? We went and saw the new
You're
Elvis.
Washing your hair.
We saw the new Elvis movie.
Oh, okay. Well, that's definitely better than I haven't seen it yet, but
it was probably more entertaining and more realistic.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have SummerSlam coming up. I think that's probably the next one, and it's almost like they're giving away what's the fact that that Theory will cash in then on the main event, which is, I don't know. There's just no suspense, even with something that has built-in suspense. But anyway, we're going to move on to our main topic, and that is Sid in ECW. Perhaps you didn't know that he was in ECW. Well, if you blinked back then in 1998, you might have missed the fact that he was in ECW. We are more familiar with Sid in his WCW and WWF runs, but he has done a lot of indie stuff, and he did make an appearance in ECW. So yes, let me stand corrected. It was 1999 that if you blinked, you would have missed him in ECW. But let's just give some quick background. Sidney Raymond Eudy was born December 16th, 1960 in West Memphis, Tennessee. And his career in pro wrestling began after he was trained by Tojo Yamamoto, and it began in 1987. He would eventually go on to be in the NWA in 1989. He would, before that, he would have stints in WCCW as well, and NWA Southeastern Wrestling, or whether maybe it was called Continental Championship Wrestling. He made the rounds. And so we're going to fast forward to 1999 and give you some quick background on how he got to be in ECW. So it was at WrestleMania 13th on March 23rd that Psycho Sid lost the WWF heavyweight title to The Undertaker. And The Undertaker would hit his finisher to pin Sid. That was a big night for The Undertaker. That same event, we would see Bret Hart and Austin have their barn burner of a match. So after that, Sid would make an appearance on Raw's War the next night after Bret Hart attacked and injured Shawn Michaels in the ring after a face-to-face promo about Hart turning on the fans. Following this, Sid was kept off television until the May 12th episode of Raw's War, where he returned as a face. He would compete against Owen Hart and defeat him to become the partner of the Legion of Doom in their feud against the Hart Foundation. He would appear at the King of the Ring on June 8th, where Sid and the Legion of Doom faced the Hart Foundation, which included Owen, British Bulldog, and Jim Neidhart in a six-man match. And the Hart Foundation would win that. On June 9th, Sid would defeat Owen on Raw, and he would basically disappear after that. And the reason given is a neck injury. Now, it's obviously he didn't do much after losing the title, and this goes into the folklore surrounding Sid, where people call him softball Sid. So I don't know. I mean, he's the comments that I've heard him make about that in some of the shoot interviews. He kind of, it's like beating around the bush a little bit. There's never really a straight answer. I mean, he does play softball. So, one could argue that him losing the title and kind of getting pushed down the card would make him want to leave. But it is worth noting that he did stay off any indie work for several months. I think around 6 months or so before he would eventually pop back up, at least according to Cage Match website, where his last match was at a house show against Owen Hart on June 14th, and then he wouldn't appear again until February, where he would be in Mississippi with Jerry Lawler in a tag match against Johnny Rotten and Reggie B. Fine, which is a great name.
Yes, and I also see that he wrestled King Kong Bundy at the Eddie Gilbert Memorial Brawl.
Yes, that would.
I think we should find the Eddie Gilbert Memorial Brawl
and review it,
or rebook it, or do something with it. I would be very interested to see who was all on that show and how that went.
No, yeah, as would I. So yes, he would work for what was called Power Pro Wrestling in Tennessee. And so after that, he would show up in Extreme Championship Wrestling.
Really quick, before we move on, I would just like to mention that the main event of the Eddie Gilbert Memorial Brawl, the first one, was Dan Severn versus Al Snow.
And I think that could have been a main event anywhere in the world, right, Leonard?
Yes. Apparently there were several of these. I'm gonna go off on a the one that Sid and King Kong Bundy was at in 1998, the main event was even better. It was Doug and Tommy Gilbert versus Buddy Landell and Dory Funk Jr.
That would have definitely been an interesting match to see.
Okay, I'm out of that. I'm not looking at that anymore. I'm done looking at the Eddie Gilbert Memorial Brawl.
Our Eddie Gilbert tangent is concluded.
Yes.
So he would debut in ECW at Guilty as Charged 1999, January 10th to be exact, where he would come out and defeat John Cronus in a minute 31. And so this was kind of the MO for Sid in ECW. He would come in, he would destroy guys in a couple minutes, and then he would leave. And, the fans seemed to react to him pretty well in the short time that he was there.
They ate him up. I watched a bunch of clips, and we're going to get to those probably. But did he actually wrestle an actual match?
I mean, it's according to Cage Match, some of these were actual matches. The one that's on here, like I watched a match with him and Skull Von Crush.
Oh yes, I did watch that one. I guess that was technically a match.
Like the one that I saw that was listed as a match that I didn't realize it was a match was when he came out and destroyed the Dudleys.
Oh yeah, I didn't think that was.
I mean, that's listed as being 11 minutes long. Sid was not out in the ring for 11 minutes.
No, I thought I know at the end of it, it turns into like Spike pins Bubba, and I was like,
right. He was supposed to be tag team partners with Spike, I guess, but then he ended up destroying Spike.
Yeah.
After they won the match, so I guess it was a match, in
theory,
in that sense,
in Austin theory. Oh.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say before we go on here is I as you mentioned at the top of this topic, a lot of people probably didn't know Sid was in ECW. I didn't until I believe this was a topic from good friend of the show, Ronnie.
Yes.
That I didn't remember either. I was in college in Pittsburgh at the time, and I did catch some ECW programming here and there because Hardcore TV, which was syndicated, was available in the Pittsburgh area on some local stations. But I didn't watch it regularly, and I have no recollection of Sid being in ECW. until we did this. And from what I found, V has said himself, and of course I think you have to take this with a grain of salt, it seemed to be a handful of unadvertised appearances where he would basically just powerbomb guys and leave,
Right.
Yeah, and apparently there were some house shows he was advertised for, but that he didn't show up for them because, according to him, he didn't know in time.
Which kind of leads you to like the Paul Heyman approach to making money in a time when they were not making money.
Yes, yeah.
Which is, I'm going to advertise this guy, and hopefully fans show up.
Yeah, I mean, to prove that, I think you would need to cross-reference advertised shows if Sid wrestled elsewhere, because he said he had other dates, and that's why he couldn't make it. So, get on cage matches and have to cross-reference ECW shows with what Sid was doing. And apparently, too, what Sid talked about in this shoot interview I found was that there were money issues where Sid had a check bounce on him, and Sid said he was cool with it. Just give me another check. Right. Again, I think that's a hard thing to prove. What I thought was very funny that the guy who was making a fuss was Tommy Rogers. And
apparently Paul Heyman was more scared of Tommy Rogers than
than Sid. He thought Tommy Rogers was going to legit kick his ass. And
at least in every story, and I like you find it hard to believe that Sid walks into a locker room just chill about not having his money. Especially as big as he is, and the way he could play a mean guy. But and I was surprised to find that Sid said he enjoyed his time there and working with the guys there. He had good praise for most everyone. The only person he didn't like, it seems, was Bubba Ray, who he called a prima donna. Yeah, and I've heard other people say that. So that's not just it. I've heard other people say that they did not like Bubba Ray. They do not like working with Bubba Ray. So I found at least there was a grain of truth in that if you, compare that to what other people have said. And he would have stayed in ECW had Paul Heyman offered him a contract for $150 a year, I think.
It's something I don't remember what he said, but he said he would have been. And of course, I mean, we'll get to that, but he wound up going back to WCW after this point.
Right. And, so Leonard, do you think that he could have moved the needle, as they say, if he had been in a permanent fixture in ECW?
I think to a degree, because he had moved the needle when he was there in these sporadic, unannounced appearances. And it is very clear from the videos that I watched that the crowd was rabid for Sid. They went ballistic anytime he would come out. Considering the fact that he was paired with Judge Jeff Jones, who I had no idea was a thing that existed until we started watching this.
I don't feel as bad then, because I didn't watch a lot of ECW.
Yeah.
As I'm listening to different podcasts and stuff, I'm hearing about different people that were in ECW or made appearances that I just didn't know that they were even there, like Terry Gordy, for example. I had no idea Terry Gordy was in ECW.
Yeah, but anyway, so Judge Jeff Jones was a heel. And Sid's getting these tremendous face pops, and he's beating up heels, he's beating up faces, he's beating up anything that walks, and people are loving it. So I think the maximum potential you could have got out of Sid is have him continue this. And of course, we know the doldrums that ECW was in 99 to 2000. I think at some point you have to put the title belt on Sid.
Yeah.
The problem, once you put the belt on Sid, that's going to move the needle, but then who's going to beat him?
Right.
So that becomes the problem there, is how do you ever move the belt, or what do you do? Because probably what would happen would be Sid would take a contract from WCW or WWE. Could be while he's under contract, could be after it runs out, doesn't matter. But I could see him leaving and then just leaving them in the lurch about what you do, because even walking out the door, I don't think Sid jobs for you walking out the door.
Right. I mean, well, unless it's to somebody like The Undertaker, I guess. But
someone of that nature who
they didn't have anybody like that.
No. Mike Awesome? He'd been in WCW by that time. I mean,
and Sid was doing his same shtick, just in jeans. I mean, there was no new flavor to his character or personality.
No.
They just called him Sid, I believe.
Yeah, no Sid Vicious. Although in the Bully Ray promo against him in that match that we mentioned, he does say something about how Sid thinks he's vicious and he's no psycho or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
does these little name drops there. Yeah, he was just billed as Sid, and I believe wasn't the blue jeans like standard attire for Sid after this point? Because I do remember him wearing those in late WCW.
Yeah, I believe you're right. Yes. So I don't know if I mentioned his last couple matches in ECW. One was at ECW Hardcore Heaven in 1999 against Just Incredible. And the other one was against Rod Price. And I do not know who that gentleman is.
No, I don't think I watched that match. There are a lot of these clips available on YouTube of Sid and ECW.
Right, because they're kind of like the perfect clips to have on YouTube because they're just short clips,
Right, everything I think was under 5 minutes. Very easy to. Again, it was everything kind of followed the same pattern. Someone would come out, they'd be a match going on, or someone would talk. I sit and shoot at Sid or whatever. Sid would come out, beat up a dude, choke slam him over the ropes through a table, and then they would crawl back in the ring, and then he would power bomb them. And then the crowd would chant one more, and he would power bomb them a second time. And that was like every single appearance.
Yes, and I should have mentioned the match against Just Incredible. He would turn on Judge Jeff Jones.
Yes,
that match at Hardcore Heaven. So, that is about it for his career in ECW because due to the money problems that they were having, he said in his shoot interview that because he wasn't offered a permanent deal there, he was looking to go to one of the bigger companies. And so he would return to WCW in 1999 after Kevin Nash and Scott Hall kind of, helped him get back up there. And he would return at the Great American Bash in June of 1999, where he would join the Randy Savage heel stable Team Madness. He would eventually adopt the nickname of the Millennium Man and face world champion Kevin Nash on July 5th, 1999 on Nitro, and onward and maybe not upward, but onward he would go in WCW until, of course, the infamous leg break.
Yes, against Scott Steiner. Looking at my notes here, one other thing I'd like to mention is that Joey Styles continued to change Sid's height on different matches. I know he would call him anywhere from 6'8" to 6'10".
Do you think he did that on purpose?
It wouldn't surprise me. It's either he did it on purpose or he just didn't care. Like he was just ballparking it.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, yeah, so there's not much to add here. I do think that, if you could eliminate the money problems that ECW was having, I think that Sid could have been an interesting addition to their roster because he was somebody that was still in his prime that could attract audiences and could adapt to that ECW method of matches. But, it didn't happen because they weren't good with money. We've heard many stories about people having bounce checks and, even though they were being kind of helped by WWE in a low-key way. So,
and to go off of what you said, not only could he adapt to the ECW style, but the fact that he had a completely different look and body type than what they had.
Right, because they had a lot of, for lack of a better word, cruiserweight type guys. They had,
and their bigger guys were usually dumpy. Guys like Bully Ray, guys like Amish Roadkill.
Right, yeah, they would have guys that were muscular but maybe shorter and stockier. Yeah. They had a lot of different styles there. So here comes Sid, who just, Paul Heyman knew how to book him, clearly. Like, he was booking him in a smart way. So it would have been interesting to see where that would have led. But as with many guys, it was just kind of a pit stop on the road to joining one of the bigger companies. But it is interesting to look back on this. We always appreciate these suggestions from Ronnie, because especially me, because especially with ECW, because there's just not a lot of ECW that I watch, because you were in college. I was a junior in high school at that time. And, ECW was on at weird times. It was tough enough to get my parents to get one of the big pay-per-views, let alone to be like, hey, have this ECW event. Like, they wouldn't even have known what that is. So, yeah. Anyway, Leonard, final thoughts on Sid?
Overall, I think it was a good use for him. He's an awesome looking dude, very intense in his presentation, always connected with fans. But he was never a Mac technician. He never worked well in longer matches unless he had someone like Shawn Michaels guiding him. So short matches or short segments like this where he just kicks ass, hits the power bomb, and leaves, I think works really well for him. And yeah, that would have played out over time. But as we were saying earlier, I think you could have rode that to a title reign, which I think would have moved the needle. But then the problem becomes, what do you do from there? But, what ifs? Who knows? Right. But yeah, for the short time he was there, I think it was a good use. As you said earlier, Heyman knew how to book to his strengths. And
wasn't Spike portraying a giant killer at some point? That could have been the guy who ended his reign, Spike Dudley.
Yes, I believe so. I don't remember if that was then or if that was maybe later.
It might have been some other time, yeah.
In WWE, I don't remember, but yes.
So that will wrap up this episode. Let us know what you think of Sid's time in ECW, and let us know if there's anybody else that appeared in ECW that you'd like us to tackle, because we welcome all those suggestions. And Leonard, are you planning on watching SummerSlam?
I am planning on watching the Eddie Gilbert Memorial Brawl. Everyone I can find.
Well, we appreciate that, and if we can find those, we will bring those to you. Leonard, I think that we should try to tackle, and this is me talking because I don't even like to tackle these anymore. We should try to tackle SummerSlam.
All right, I will go
for the viewers.
I will go out of my way. I will suffer for you, the viewers, the listeners, and I will watch what will most likely be a terrible SummerSlam.
Yeah, most likely, and it's in Nashville this year. So, on that note, let us know what you thought of our show. Whether you agree or disagree, please check us out on Apple Podcasts and or Spotify. Check out our Stupid Questions videos, which are also available on our channel. And for Leonard, my name is Chad. We will see you next week, and Alexa will see you out.